Welcome back to Recap IT. Today we are going to recap a 2003 crime thriller movie titled Oldboy. After being held hostage for years for no apparent reason, a man is released with a cell phone, money, and expensive clothes. Unless he discovers the identity of his kidnapper, he faces an even worse fate. But before we begin, please consider subscribing to this channel. Now without wasting any further time, let's begin, shall we? Our film begins with a man named Mr. O being interrogated at a police station. He is caught because he was causing trouble while drunk, but he is still drunk and acting strangely, which irritates the cops. He tells the cops that today is his daughter's birthday, and he must celebrate it with his family. Before O returns, he calls his daughter to wish her a happy birthday, and he also forces his friend to wish his daughter a happy birthday, but when Mr. O's wife asks to speak with him, he vanishes without a trace. After a few months, Mr. O finds himself alone in a small hotel room with no interaction from the outside world. The only thing that comes from the outside world is food. He also inquires of the food servant about the cause for being caught, but he is ignored. A few years pass, and he is still trapped with no outside view. Suddenly, a poison gas is released to put him to sleep. It is only for some treatment of his clothes, hair, and room. They also take his blood sample. Luckily, he is also given a television, which allows him to learn about the outside world. However, he is still frustrated and stressed because his normal life has been taken from him. He tries to end his life several times, but is always stopped by the captor. Mr. O hears the news one day and learns that his wife has been murdered, and he is the prime suspect. He realizes that the captor is attempting to ruin his life, and he vows to avenge him, so he begins to work out, watch TV, and train himself to fight so that he can kill his captors once he escapes. Simultaneously, he recalls his recollections of his past in order to discover the guys behind his misfortunes, but he becomes perplexed because he has caused too many problems with too many people in his life. 10 years pass, and he tries to make a move with a chopstick, digging a hole through the wall one brick at a time for 4 years until he can put out and sense the rain with his hand. He is overjoyed because he will be able to escape in a short time, but the captor activates the poison gas, and while he is sleeping, a lady comes in and hypnotizes him. When he wakes up, he is in the outside world wearing neat clothes and a watch. There is also a man who wishes to end his life. Mr. O stops him and inquires about the current world. He learns that he has been trapped for 15 years without communicating with anyone and considers himself fortunate to be able to live again. As Mr. O departs, the man falls from the top of the building. While traveling around the city, Mr. O tries to steal a cigarette from one of a group of young men because he misses smoking so much. The young men want to teach the disrespectful man a lesson, but they are thrashed by Mr. O alone with his fist. While walking through the city, an unknown poor man hands him a full cash wallet and a cell phone without knowing who the giver is. Confused, he stops at a sushi restaurant. While eating, someone calls him and asks how the clothes are. He is enraged and asks loudly who the caller is. He also guesses several names, but all of them are false. The captor says it doesn't matter who he is. When he wakes up, he is with the restaurant servant, sleeping in her place. The woman warns him not to do anything foolish, but he continues to do so until she needs to urinate. She then introduces herself as Midu, and says she fell in love with him at first sight, with the help of Midu. Mr. O searches for his daughter but discovers that she has been adopted and relocated to another country. As a result, he decides to focus on his vengeance. He is looking for the restaurant that always served him food during his captivity and will never be forgotten, so he goes to every Chinese restaurant there and tastes them one by one until he finds it. Then he follows the restaurant's delivery man to a building with a secret floor and brutally kills him. There, he meets the man who runs the criminal organization that handles private prison for money. Mr. O tortures him until he agrees to talk. He never meets his clients in person but always records their conversations. O leaves by taking the records, but it's not as simple as it seems. This organization is backed up by gangsters. O faces and fights them all alone by using a hammer on his hand. He's unstoppable. The next day, he eventually sees his old friend and pleads for assistance. They try to track down the captor using call records, and it comes out that the captor lives close to Midu's apartment and goes by the name Mr. Evergreen. Mr. O seeks vengeance by killing him alone, but Mr. Evergreen intervenes, saying that he will never know why he imprisoned O for 15 years, and Midu will also be killed, and if Mr. O does not find out the answer by himself, he will kill himself. Mr. Evergreen then leaves O, who is powerless to act. When O goes to Midu's apartment and sees the previous gangsters, led by the crime organization's owner, holding Midu captive, he wants to get revenge by torturing them, but they are stopped by Mr. Evergreen, who also delivers a large sum of money to rescue Mr. O. Mr. O tells her everything after this happened and they make love, But then a deadly gas spreads and someone appears. Mr. O discovers a tracker on his shoes the next day, and he and his friends try to solve the mystery by looking up the meaning of evergreen, which leads them to his high school, where he found his face, as well as a girl who is very suspicious that the photo was cropped. From the call, his friend remembers the name of this girl and says that she was rumored to be a slut. Mr. O suddenly recalls his past memory, and he comes to the Evergreen building with his answer, explaining that the main reason is that he was the one who spread the rumor of his sister as a slut, and that the one who fornicated with her is none other than her brother, whom he saw for himself, and the rumor that his sister was pregnant was spread accidentally, and he killed his sister because he was afraid that everyone would know about his illicit relationship. Mr. Evergreen refuses, claiming that Mr. O's mouth and gossip are to blame for her pregnancy. He begins to tell him the truth, not only imprisoning him but also hypnotizing him and Mito, who turns out to be his daughter who has altered her identity through hypnosis. Mr. O attacks Evergreen but is defended by his bodyguard. They fight until the bodyguard is desperate to kill him. Mr. Evergreen kills his bodyguard because he doesn't want Mr. O to die so easily. He must live with the pain of knowing that he is Midu's father and that they have an illicit relationship for the rest of his life. Mr. O begs him like a dog not to tell his daughter about it, and when Mr. Evergreen ignores him, he begs him even more by cutting his tongue. Satisfied with his diabolical scheme, Mr. Evergreen swears not to tell her and walks away. Mr. Evergreen kills himself at the end of the film because he is satisfied with his vengeance. In the meantime, Mr. O asks the woman to hypnotize him so that he can have two personalities, one who knows everything and the other who does not know Midu's true identity. After that, Midu finds him and hugs him, telling him that she loves him so much. Mr. O is happy to hear that, but he must endure his pain for the rest of his life. And this is where the movie ends. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, until next time.